All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're talking time blocking today. This is part 3 in a 4-part series. And we have different classes that all kind of tie together, and they all talk about efficiency and what you should or shouldn't be doing as an agent, and how to organize your time effectively. So without further ado, we're going to just hop right into it. Time blocking is the concept of having a calendar, having something that directs your activities aside from just your wandering and rambling mind. Part 2 of this training was all about task lists. And what that is that's having a good organized list or system or whatever of tasks that enable you to do what you need to do in the right order when you're in the right location. And that last part is key. I touched on that just very briefly because that ties into this part, which is all about location, right? So the task list, you might have a couple different versions. One might be for office tasks. You want to do that obviously when you're in front of your computer in the office. Another one might be a car list. Any calls you don't have to think that hard about, that might be good to do in the car. Time blocking will hopefully help bring some context around when and how you would use those task lists, and how to set up your week efficiently. So those are kind of some of the goals today. Before we hit the record button, there are a couple of requests. One is that we talk about elements of a good calendar. Another one is that we talk about the 90-second rule. And the third one is that we talk about email, what it is and what it is not. So those are some teasers for what's to come. We're going to start right off with elements of a good calendar. So what is time blocking? Time blocking is purposefully planning each day. There are a few best practices that can just make this easy. There are a lot of benefits to just spending some time up front, setting up a system that automatically has events in it and repeats certain tasks. It might take you a little bit of time, but I really recommend blocking off a half a day to work on the following. So the first one is just color coding tasks. You're going to see that there are a few different types of tasks or events that we all do in a given day, week, month. It's very helpful for your brain to be able to process, okay, I'm doing this type of task because I'm in green mode. The second one is scheduling recurring events. This is also an efficiency best practice. Again, there are some activities that we repeat every single week, or we want to do once a month or bi-weekly. Instead of trying to remember those and do them, or remember those and remember to put them in your calendar, why not use the system and let it do that for you? And then the third thing is personal time. This is something that a lot of realtors maybe aren't so good at, especially in the beginning. And I think that's okay. There's a certain degree of needing to figure it out, cut your chops, put in a lot of time. But once you've been in the business for a year and a half or so, the world should start to slow down for you quite a bit. Your business should be more predictable, and you should be able to kind of have a better handle on planning regular time off. I'm not saying that in year one, you shouldn't take time off. You obviously need to be present for the big events in life. The personal time I'm talking about, though, too, is starting to have more of a semblance of a balanced schedule, which is something that eludes a lot of agents. So we'll jump right into it and we'll talk about color coding. Color coding improves memory recall and it helps you visualize your actions. So, like I said before, having colors assigned to different tasks tell me what mindset I need to be in. Anything in orange is an appointment that I must physically attend. I've also started to use this for Zoom meetings. I've been having a lot more Zoom trainings or Zoom interviews or whatever the case might be. And I'm using orange to designate, okay, this is time that I need to be focused and be well caffeinated because I'm working with people. Purple, it's personal time, just because P is for personal. And purple, I'll start with P, obviously. So I use this for two different types of personal. One would be places and events, and then the second would be important dates like birthdays and anniversaries. Red is a project I'm under the gun on, and I use red because it is a chaos color to me. It means that um, bar none, I cannot schedule over red, because unfortunately I do schedule over other events at times, and I end up having to make changes and some sacrifices to prior plans. Green, money, income producing activities. Um, Income producing activities include lead generation, lead follow up, prospecting, anything that helps you grow your business that isn't an inbound input is a good way to explain it. So we all have our email and our texts that come at us and clients that are asking us questions. That's great. That can be lead follow up in a way. Um, for me, I see the green blocks as me going out and hunting, or it could be me setting up better systems for farming. But to me, it's something that's outbound. It's more of a purposeful activity than just a client texting me about a property, me responding. And then yellow, I use that for scheduled calls and for drive time. I've actually started using orange a little bit more for scheduled calls, because calls can typically mean Zoom meetings for me as well. Um, so that's kind of the basics of color coding. Does anybody have questions on why we would use color coding, and kind of how that could help you out? Fairly simple, right? You can use whatever colors you want. These are just what work for me. You can have different categories that I don't even have on here. You might hate the color red. You can use whatever you want. I don't really care, but I do recommend doing something. Next up, we're going to talk recurring events. So recurring events are, they're just that. I mean, don't overthink it, right? They're things that you do every day, week, or month. So suppose you have a standing call every Tuesday morning and every Thursday morning with two of the people that you mentor. Very easy, very helpful, just to kind of put that in as an event. I know Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Gene and I are talking. We actually use the body of that event for our goals as well. So that's kind of a newer thing, is we're both holding each other accountable to our goals, and we use the body of that calendar invitation to write down what our goals are for the following week. It makes it really, really easy to do two things. Number one, know what we talked about last week. Number two, if I'm going about my week and say it's Thursday or Friday, and I can remember a couple of the goals, but maybe there are a couple that elude me, things that I set out to do, I can easily refer back to that, prior Tuesday's call. Getting down a rabbit hole a little bit on that one specific topic, and that's also sort of talking about tracking. But you should use recurring events for things like lead generation activities, lead follow-up. You'll see that we use these all the time in Brook Group for different trainings and different meetings. Let's see. Purple, planning personal time off. It's really important you preserve your mental health by setting aside time for yourself and your family. Every time I see that typo and I'm like, I got to fix that after, and I always forget. I'm going to write that down. So a couple tips here. One, try to have some, kind of repeating time if you can. For me, it's Friday afternoons. I don't work past ideally 4 o'clock, typically 5 o'clock. I don't take appointments, so I just don't book showings on Friday afternoons. Now there are times that I get a request from a client and it might be urgent. I'll try to work them on another day, and if I can't, then I'll ask another agent on my team to kind of help out and cover that. But that's just sort of, I know I'm burnt out at that point. I know that I've been going hard at it for the whole week. I know Allison's done with her week and is ready to kind of wrap up and relax. So that's our time. I've also started to block off Sundays. It's not perfect, but I'm trying to block off most or all of the day on Sunday in order to have some personal time. Now, that's something that I would not have even thought about doing in my first 2 years in real estate. And I'm even struggling to kind of do it now with a little bit more of a mature business. It's a little bit more predictable. But I still work some Sundays. I'm still pulling 7-day weeks sometimes, but I at least have my calendar blocked off. That way, if I have to book over it, it's a very conscious decision. And I know that I should at least try to take a half day off then, or grab whatever other personal time I can during the week. It's really, really easy to let the inputs drive your schedule and drive you crazy in real estate. That leads us to a life hack. Advocate for yourself. This is for your clients, your coworkers, whomever. Offer a specific time block to a client um, so they can work around your schedule. So it's not a bad thing to say you're busy in real estate. It actually could show that you're an agent in production. So um, I'll give you a really good example right now. I have a newer client. The name will be changed to protect the innocent. And John Smith is a very excited first-time home buyer. I've been out with him a couple of times. We've looked at properties, as many first-time home buyers do. He kind of got into that instant mode of it just came on and I need to see it now, or what's worse, it's been on the market for 30 days, but I just saw it for the first time and I need to see it now. And I've had to kind of pump the brakes on John Smith a little bit. Well, I see you nodding, and that likely means you've encountered this as well. And it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're new and your business might just be a couple of clients at this point, and you're really trying to get started. So this may or may not be depending on what stage of your business you're in. But I recommend trying to gain control over your time and trying to control when you're available, frankly. um, we had plans to go out yesterday. Property went under deposit. We made plans to go out tomorrow. Great, no problem. um, he then sent me another property and said, oh, so based on the prior text, it seems like you wouldn't be free until Thursday afternoon, because I told him I'm free at lunch but not Wednesday night. And so he kind of inferred, he's like, oh, okay, so the next time you'd be available must be Thursday evening. I am free Thursday evening, but respectfully, I don't want to keep running out for one property at a time, especially if it's something that frankly doesn't even fit this guy's criteria. So I use that as a good opportunity to kind of take control of the situation and just say, you know, hey John, like I'm, happy to get out there for properties that are really, hot prospects for us. But if it's something that's sort of borderline or doesn't really fit your ideal need, let's try to, bundle it with another property or something to that effect. And he wrote back right away. He's like, yeah, you know what? It doesn't really fit because of A and B. I'm more looking for C and D. So simple conversation, simple text or two that let him, in a way, it did. In that text, I said, hey, my schedule's been, booking up really fast. I want to make sure that we're spending time on just the most important properties for you. Something like that helped him understand, yep, I do have other clients. He's still a priority. If it's like meets the criteria and it's right there, I'll get out, or I'll find a teammate to help me. Brian helped with the showing when I was out of town last week with this particular client. So he knows I'm there. That's always the comment that I get from agents. Well, how do I know that my clients will feel taken care of? I don't want them to be abandoned. I totally agree. And I get a lot of good feedback from my clients that they feel like they're my only client, which is what I want. But there's also a balance of I've got 2 or 3 different businesses I'm running and a ton of clients in my agent business, and I can't just work for one guy, even though I want it to feel like that. So that might have gotten a little bit long-winded. I hope it sort of helps illustrate a point. How you do it will vary based on client. Um, when I do it, if I do it, will even vary based on client. Suppose you have a client who is selling and buying, and you put their property on the market and they got under contract, and you've got 60 days, 75 days, put in that phrase contingent upon seller finding suitable housing. But guess what? The clock is still on. They need to find a rental or another place to buy. That client, they're going to be pretty darn high on my priority list because this person's going to be homeless, and it's a little bit different than somebody who's still kind of like waiting around. And you know I hope you get the idea, get the point I'm trying to make there. There are any questions on that topic specifically? I want to spend a little bit of time and talk through it. Maybe you have a situation that went well or that didn't go well that you want to kind of bring up and troubleshoot a little bit.
I kind of wanted to put an add-on, Lou, if that's cool. So
yeah, please do. Yep.
When I first joined Brook Group, eager agent, excited to take everyone out, drop everything I was doing, and realized that I was starting to get pretty burnt out. So what I did is I took a step back, and before booking showings or anything like that, I went over my calendar and didn't just say yes. And I realized it's so much easier. Keep in mind, these people don't know what your schedules are. It's
Mhm.
much better if you say, hey, let me double check on that. Or if you really don't think it's going to work, say no. Best case scenario, you reach out to them again and say, hey, actually, I do have an opening. I moved some stuff around. It shows them that you care about them rather than just them setting the expectation, because you give an inch, they take a foot. If they realize that they can book anything they want with you, you'll drop everything, go out. It might not seem like it, but it'll catch up real quick and it'll get old.
Yeah,
And then they'll
yeah,
be offended the first time you say, no, that doesn't work for me. So just
exactly.
setting that expectation off the bat, it's going to make your lives a lot easier.
Definitely. And I should also add to that, this is, I think, the third time, that third week or so, that I've worked with this person. I've been out with him twice. A colleague of mine has been out with him once. I've got another appointment with him tomorrow. So it's, yeah, third or fourth week. And I felt like it was an appropriate time where I had enough of a relationship, and, I provided a ton of value, and I know that I'm his agent and we've got a good relationship and I want to work with the guy. Um, but at the same rate, it wasn't too late. I hadn't gotten 2, 3, 4 months down the road, and all of a sudden I'm trying to like pump the brakes and get back some of my time. They're like, "Well, where was Lou from February?" Then that, can be pretty jarring in and of itself for somebody. Um, cool. Thank you for chiming in on this, Will, and I love having good variety of experience on these calls. Opportunity cost. This is big. You are not an employee. Has anybody seen Dodgeball? You are not a pirate. It's really dumb, small scene in there, but you are not an employee. You are an entrepreneur, and your time is a resource. In fact, it's the most valuable resource that any one of us have. It's the one thing that you can't make more of. You can make more money, you can make more busy work, you can make more sales, you can whatever. But time wasted is money wasted, and time saved, time used appropriately, that should say, is money saved or money earned. Time management is all about maximizing your efficiency and minimizing your opportunity costs. So, opportunity costs, that's sort of a concept from economics, which is often applied to money. So, opportunity cost in the context of finance could be something like, I have $1,000 invested, making 10%. That's a good return, but then that's $1,000 that I can't invest in something else. And if I get an investment that I can get a 30% return on, then unfortunately my money is tied up in that 10% investment, right? So think about the same type of thing with your time. Um, Give you another good example here. I want to do some outbound marketing to specific neighborhoods in a specific town where I have buyers. Um, there's nothing on the market, that's in this price range in this area, and with these specifics. But I know there are a couple neighborhoods that do have that type of inventory. So a colleague of mine gave a really good idea of kind of writing some handwritten notes and mailing it to them. I know from bunch of research, whatever, that handwritten has the highest open rate, much better than if I just printed off some postcards or printed some letters. So I wanted to do some handwritten notes, but I know that I don't have the time, energy, patience, or handwriting to do this effectively. So I've asked a friend's daughter if they do it, and I'm going to pay her $10 an hour to write some notes. The activity gets accomplished, and I've just leveraged my time, right? So I can hire out a $10 an hour task to go do a $100 an hour task. And that's how we should all be thinking as entrepreneurs. There are many different ways that we can leverage our time, and I could talk for probably 2 hours on that topic alone. One common one within Brook Group is just using the systems that we have. So when it comes to follow up on newer strangers, right? Stranger internet leads. Maybe it's somebody who's brand new who just came in. Let that follow up boss campaign run. Maybe it's a lead that you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 months, or that you never really talked to in 3 or 4 months. Well, go back through your follow up boss. Let's set some drip campaigns, set some re-engagement campaigns. And I know, look, it may not be your exact phrasing, right? It may not be perfect to what you would want to say, but it's better than doing nothing. So if you don't have the time to touch those people with a personal phone call, text, video message, whatever, use the systems you have. So you can leverage your time with technology. You can also do it through people, like what I mentioned with the handwritten cards. Another example that's available to all of us in Brook Group is our transaction coordinator and our listing coordinator. And it's really important that you take full advantage of those systems and those people who are there to kind of help you. It's their job. You know, Tanya's job is to coordinate photographers, look at pictures, choose the best ones, do the write up. And you have the opportunity to review it and make your small changes and say, hey, you know what? The seller mentioned this one really important part of the house. Can we get that in there? Great. Do all of that. But my strong suggestion is let Tanya do 90% of the work up front. Then you're just getting the listing, doing your double check, checking your notes from what the seller said, making sure that those relevant points get in there. And all the while, you can go out and do some other, activity that could generate revenue for you. Any words on opportunity costs? If you want to do, I have more to say. If you want to do a really, really telling study for you, is write down all the tasks you do in a week. Just write them down on a notepad. Then schedule some time, within a week or so, to review that list and put $1 per hour to each one of those tasks and figure out, is it worth doing or not? Is it below or above what you think your hourly rate should be? And to figure out your hourly rate, if you were to work 40 hours a week in 50 weeks in a year, that's 2,000 hours in a year. Now, a lot of us work more than that. I'm probably more in like the 3,000 range. So I might use 3,000 hours as my target. Let's say, I'll keep numbers interesting and easy. Let's say I wanted to make 300 grand in a year. I divide 300 grand by 3,000 hours, and I know that I have to be working at $100 per hour or more. That means that I'm loading up on tasks that are in the $250, $500 per hour range, and I'm doing everything I can to shed the $10 per hour tasks. So again, you may be a newer agent. You might say, hey, this is my sole source of income, and I'm kind of working on getting rolling, and I don't really have additional funds just to kind of throw away at hiring out people to do different things. That's okay, but just be thinking in terms of that concept, because what it'll also do is it'll also tell you, yes, this is worth it, or no, this is not worth my time. I'm going to play a really short video for you. And this might open in a different window. Give me a sec.
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter, set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand.
All right. So That should be, it's a fairly straightforward point to make, but it's an analogy that I love that I've heard used a bunch of different times. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen to you in a sec, and I'll show you my calendar. We'll go through what some example tasks that I have are on there, but I wanted to first open it up and see what questions you guys have on sort of the how-tos and the content that we just went over. Rock and roll. Nothing.
Hi. So I'm going to talk real quick.
Sure.
I'm in the car driving, but I wanted to say that I never really realized how important time blocking was until I began all of this, because I'm a mom. I have 2 little boys, so I'm like running around all day. And now that I'm tasked with all these things to do, it's really important for me to sit down and like set like time blocks for myself of when I can do it. So I would push myself and like wake up at 4:30 and then, do certain things and get the kids up and take them to school. Then I have so much time, and then, meetings, whatever it is that I had to do. But I do need to sit down and focus. So this is like amazing.
Awesome.
And I just, I just know how important it is to actually narrow time down and also like nurture myself at the end of the day and not stress out, because if I burn out, then like I'm not going to be able to give my all to my family, myself, clients, or work.
You nailed it. Yeah, when you burn out, you can't give all of yourself or any part of yourself really to family, work, clients, coworkers, whoever you have responsibilities to. Totally agree. And if you were newer to time blocking, do you mind me asking what were some things that you did to get yourself in the habit or to make yourself time block? It seems like I know how you learned the lesson, but I guess how did you implement the solution?
Well, now I know like where I need to dedicate my time, I think. So like because I have kids and a life and a job now, that like I need to, like I was able to kind of reassess myself and know where I'm needed most and at what times. So I can dedicate, let's say 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. to me, working out or like reading whatever market updates, just gathering my thoughts. And then, from like 7 to 8, get the kids ready. And then just throughout the day between those hours, depending on how the day goes, between clients and appointments, it's just, I think it was just really helpful to sit down and actually make some type of schedule for myself, because if I didn't, then my mind was all over the place. I would have like a ping on my phone. Oh my gosh, you have an appointment, or oh, you have a Zoom meeting, or oh, this client called you, you have to call them back. And then you kind of lack on everything else, where if you set little slots for yourself, you kind of know, and it's easier to just guide yourself throughout the day with the time management.
Yep.
And I love it.
Awesome. Cool. Anybody else? All right. With that in mind, I'm going to swing over my calendar. That way you can get a look at, what it is that I do and kind of see some examples. And again, it's going to look different for everybody. You can make any changes that you want to this. You can change when you do things, the colors for events, the type of work you're doing, whatever. I picked a random week just so you could see what that looks like. So these are the things that pre-populate for me every week. Some of these are bi-weekly, like this John and Lou call is kind of like a coaching thing. That's bi-weekly. And I do eat lunch every day. But in general, you can see that these are tasks that, if I kind of flip through time and time and time again, you can see that these are all, more or less my calendar repeats itself. I'm going to peel across. So I've got some purple in here. I like seeing a lot of purple. This is, time that I'm taking for myself. These are some sort of like morning meetings that I have. I've got my time with Allison. on Friday. Like I said, I've got a time block on Sundays that are purple. I don't know if I'm always able to adhere to that or not. I know that I'm not always able to adhere to that, but I try to, you know, adhere to that to whatever degree I can. Some other tasks. Remember, I said that orange I use for places that I need to be or calls. So here I've got this repeating, weekly mastermind call that I like to be on. That's actually not a weekly thing. Here we go. Weekly, I've got a check-in with Gina on our goals. I think I mentioned this one before. We have our actual goals written in it's not in this one, it would be in next week's event. That way we can kind of keep track of them. For me and Christine, same type of thing. We've got our goals written in here. That's on Thursdays. I know I have my BNI meeting every Wednesday. That's a call too, but this is a call that I can't miss. In fact, I get penalized if I don't go to these calls. If I think I have like 2 6 and 2 replacements per year, or I get like penalized in the BNI. Whereas orange, like my goal review with Gina and Christine, I can move that if I need to. Last week I had to move Christine's to Friday. Power Up Atomic Habits call. No, I can't move this, but if I can't go to it, then I'll be a little bit forgiving with myself. You get the point. In yellow, these are just sort of like FYIs or things that I, am trying to do or what I should be doing at that point in time. I know that Monday morning I am slammed with paperwork. It's stuff that I didn't do the week before or that came in over the weekend, or that I just generally feel like I'm drowning and I need to, kind of have some personal time to work in my business. So maybe that's a better title for this, is work in the business and not on it. It's just sort of my catch up time. I also know that on Fridays, that's when my motivation starts to wane. You know why? Because every week looks like this and more. I'll show you a current week and you'll see that all this is filled up. And it's no wonder why I'm tired by Fridays. So I have this reminder, and it's 2 things. It's get out of bed, at a decent time. I don't have problems with that because I hit my meetings. It's get in the mindset of working right away and finish the week strong. Earn this personal time off on Friday and hopefully Sunday afternoons. And if I'm doing what I should be during the week, I get to have both, or get to have most of both of those. One big concept that's important in planning is that we should all plan to plan. So we should have time set aside in our schedules to look forward and back. We want to look back and see what was in our calendar before. Did we do everything? If not, if you erase, you must replace. You want to move something. Say I didn't do something last Thursday, I would have moved it into this week. And you also want to assess how effective you were with your time. There are things that come up that are out of all of our control that we just need to kind of throw in there sometimes. If it's something that in the future you can sort of control the cadence of, great. Good example of this, somebody I mentor had a listing appointment coming up and they had a CMA that they wanted to review. They asked me on like 2 or 3 hour notice. Unfortunately, I was free, and I always want to be able to help with that stuff. That's like super important to me. The training part is very important. And usually 2 or 3 hour notice could be kind of tough. So I thankfully was able to do this and kind of help that person with it. But I also at the same time asked them like, hey, when did you book this appointment? Is there any way you could have given me more notice? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, should have, I didn't do the CMA until late. Okay, well, why didn't you do the CMA until late? Well, I ran out of time. Okay, well, respectfully, I'm running out of time too. And, kind of helping people like see that you have a schedule too. I think I approached it in a way that was reasonable and respectful and everything like that. And we just kind of agreed that, hey, in the future, try to give me 2-day notice that a CMA is coming, and I'll just throw it on my calendar. And, I'll make that time, but I want to try to be able to plan to it to whatever degree I can. Because here's the other problem. Doing things like a CMA or a training with somebody else gets me out of doing something that I probably don't want to do. And that's a problem for my own efficiency. And I'm one to default to taking on other things that are important, but that get me out of doing maybe some pretty important personal tasks that I've been putting off in my own business or in my personal life. Anyway, plan to plan. Green, like I mentioned before, I use this for money generating activity. You can see that I have a red reminder here about social media. Now, I'm not always posting at 9:45 in the morning on social media, but I am seeing this and thinking about it, and I've got a number of different topics in here that I could be posting about. So if I ever have a loss of inspiration, then I know I can kind of come back into here and take a look. That does overlap with green. I was making that point because social media is important. You need to build a brand. You need to be out there and talking real estate. And I just got the text this morning. Hey, I got a real estate question for you. Great. Got a listing appointment last week just because somebody reached out. They remembered that I was in real estate. So that to me is income producing activity, even though I fought it for probably the first year and a half of my career. But I do get specific too. Tuesday mornings are for lead follow-up. Wednesdays for commercial. I'm trying to kind of make a shift into that with my business. Thursday is for lead gen or not FU, it's follow up. So I know that it could be either, what it sounds like, obviously generating new leads or following up with old leads that maybe I haven't talked to in a little while. Like I said before, this time should be spent for outbound attempts. It should be for generating new business, not following up on the texts that come in. You need to address those too, but this is dedicated time for me to go hunt and look for new business. All of these are repeating. There are some things that repeat bi-weekly. There are some things that repeat weekly, but in general, as you kind of flip through here, you can see that the same things are on here time and time again. Any questions on that, on repeating events first? Sorry, I have one more thing to say. You can see, and hopefully you will notice that most of the tasks are set up to be in the morning. And I do that on purpose because the morning is my most effective time. I also know that I won't get to certain things, unfortunately, if I don't do it in the morning. I need to be in the right headspace to want to actually lead generate and lead follow up. And the afternoon is reserved for going on appointments and going out and doing things that can require me to be sort of in that fourth gear, not exactly in hyperdrive kind of mode. Okay, what do you guys have in the way of questions on repeating events?
Hey, would you mind sharing your social media? It had a drop-down menu of what the
you want to steal my ideas? Of course.
No.
I don't do half of these. No, seriously, please do. Like, take some screenshots of this, grab it. This is something, how this came to be. I was coaching Max for about 6 months of last year. And one of the things we were working on was organization, time management, all that stuff. He's killing it with that stuff now. One thing that he struggled with that I also struggle with is social media and posting routinely. So we each sat down and we made a list of the different types of things that we can post about. I don't even remember what some of these are, like under victory posts, under contracts chicken. Like, I don't know. I wrote this list months ago and it probably needs to be called and, sort of updated, right? But the purpose of this, and this is a really good use of counter, I'm glad you mentioned this, Will, is because I'll make the excuse when I get to social media of, oh, I don't know what to do. But now I have this list and it holds me accountable, right? Because it's like, hey, you need to commit to this. You've already got to just do something, basically.
That's why I asked, because I see my notification. I'm like, I don't know what to post today. I didn't have a closing today. What else do I post?
Yep. This was the result of week in and week out, me and Max talking about it. And look, we both know to put it in our calendar and set a reminder and blah, blah, blah. But we just weren't doing it. And then finally I was like, look, I think the issue is because we don't know what to do. We clearly don't want to do it. But if we make it brainless and make it repeatable and brainless, those are kind of the two things. Those take the pain out of things that you may not like doing. Another great, sorry, go ahead.
I said thanks.
Oh yeah, definitely. Another example, I recommend for most people that you need to have some type of system. So that way when lead follow-up, commercial clients, lead gen, hit your calendar, you know what you're doing. You don't want to just get to Tuesday 1 and say, All right, lead follow-up. What am I doing? Now, I don't use my calendar for that. I don't have all my leads in here. I've got a different system for tracking that. But the operative words are I have a system for tracking that. So I know when I get to this block, I'm just, printing off my spreadsheet, going through my follow-up boss tasks, and kind of knocking off different follow-up as I go through. Other questions? One thing that I know was in the slides that I failed to mention is using, like, sending events back and forth with your spouse. I do this all the time. Allison and I just send each other different calendar invitations. That way we know what's going on and, when to block off time. That's been really, really helpful. If you can kind of get into that habit, then that's going to really serve you well. I promise you that I'd kind of flip back and look at some prior weeks with you. You can get an idea of what the week looks like in general. I'm sort of planning 2 weeks out. Tuesday, it's relatively easy for me to get things in for next week. But as we get to like Thursday, Friday, forget it. I'm looking, a week and a half out at that point. I want to just flip through and see if there's anything in general. See, I was good here about putting in lunch. But I was in a habit. I was missing lunch, which is pretty stupid. So now I've kind of built it into my thinking, right? So I don't necessarily have it on my calendar for every day, but as I'm booking other appointments, I've at least gotten to a point where it's a little bit more routine. You'll see in general that Mondays, again, I'm keeping relatively light because there's just a lot of stuff, that I'm doing on Mondays. Like, fortunately, I had a bunch of calls that I wanted to set up, so I was able to do that on this Monday. That's sort of just a look back. Oh, okay, here you go. Here's a couple ones. Hung out with our friends, the Palmers, on Sunday. Had a little birthday dinner. So that's, me and Allison sending events back and forth between each other. So let's see, elements of a good calendar. I think we hit most of that. The things I'll just kind of put a punctuation mark on as an agent. You need to have dedicated time for lead generation and lead follow-up. That's the biggest thing. If you want to get off the roller coaster of your income being unpredictable, it starts with your calendar, and it starts with you, doing those things and following up. Personal time is big. No one wants to miss a wedding, an anniversary, a birthday. If you need to, and I need to, if you need to put on your calendar a week or two ahead of time, buy mom a birthday gift before February 25th, then do that. Or put a reminder in your phone that repeats every year. Learn from me, because I've made the mistake years and years ago. Forgot a birthday. That was pretty awful. Other things, I would make sure that you have thought about your business in terms of when it tends to hit and when you have time for things like showings and paperwork. You may prefer to do showings other times. I know Christine loves doing the Friday showings. Her people really like it. So that's a plan that a time that she plans to work, and then she takes another night off earlier in the week. So I would also try to set it up in a way that your schedule is predictable. Yes, this is chaos seemingly to a lot of people, but it makes sense to me because this is just sort of the flow of my week, and that's the value of repeating events. So please do use recurring events. So a couple things that I promised to touch on earlier, I want to cover now. One is the 90-second rule. If something is going to take you 90 seconds or less to do, just do it. Don't put it on a to-do list. Don't file it for later. Don't whatever. It may not even be worth delegating. If it's 90 seconds or less, just do it and take care of it and get it off your plate. Beware of the 90-second tasks that turn into 5-minute tasks, though. Don't do those. You want to probably plan for those and put them on a task list. But if you can get it done quickly, just get it done quickly. The most common example that I can give you is it exists with the inbox. And if you have something, even you may get an email that won't take you long to respond to, but it's a bad news email. Who's ever put off responding to the bad news email? Does the problem go away? Nope. Will just said like, yep, it expands, it blows up. Like you have to do something about the problem. So either pick up the phone or write back to the email, or talk to your client and get a game plan, whatever it is. You need to take whatever that next action is. Now, I'm not saying you need to live on your email to watch for the blowups. This leads me to my second point. Email was intended to replace mail, which does not come instantly. It takes a while for mail to come. There is this sort of culture that exists around email, particularly in corporations, that you need to reply right away and get back to people right away, and shows that you're an eager beaver and that you're whatever is out there that makes people feel the need to do that. Unfortunately, it's more of the default than not in our culture. The best practice with email is to check it and reply to it 3 times per day: morning, afternoon, and night. If you're really good, you could do it 2 hours per day. That's what a lot of the books on productivity suggest. You just do it in the morning and in the evening. But most of us, we kind of need that fix. We need to look and see what's going on and reply to a couple things quickly and feel good that we've been productive. But email is a fallacy of productivity. If you have your email all day and you're replying to things as they're coming in, you are just getting sucked into a whirlwind. You're not working a purposeful calendar, and it's going to show up. It'll show up in your income 3 months, 6 months down the road. If you're just responding to things and you're only managing the deals you're working on. I see this all the time with new agents. You get 2, 3, 4 deals under contract, great, but they spend all their time managing that and all the time worrying on it, and they don't rely on the systems we have like Folio and Susan as a transaction coordinator, and they just get sucked into managing email when they should be out, lead generating or doing lead follow-up or doing showings, working with clients in some way or another. If you have an email that's going to take you longer than 90 seconds, put it on a task list, put time in your calendar, whatever it might be. For example, David sent me a deal that we're looking at. It's going to take quite a bit of time for me to go through and analyze numbers because it's tricky, frankly. So I know that I need to actually put time on my calendar for that. That said, I might see a whole host of other emails that are going to take me a few minutes to respond to. I'm doing that during my paperwork time, or I'm doing it after dinner before bed. Maybe I'll hop on the computer for an hour. You might get a slew of emails from me between like 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, something like that. That's me catching up. Sunday evenings is a really good time too, that you'll see me catching up on a lot of those non-urgent emails that are going to take me longer than 90 seconds. One tip with email, I'm getting down another rabbit hole here, is I use the starred function within Gmail to kind of indicate importance. So, good, I don't have my email up. Let me just pop this open really, really quickly. So slow. All right, so I have 2 different inboxes. I'm going to pop over to Brook Group. That's kind of the one that we're talking about that's most relevant. Gigabit internet, my ass. We just upgraded and we're paying more money and it's not any faster. Brian knows, he's been over. It's terrible. Okay, so this is my inbox. This is what's going on right now. You can see I last cleaned it up, around lunchtime. You can see that because of the time that things are here. Shame on me. I probably should have just done my tracker last night or whatever. I've got some things that are in here though from earlier that are starred off, that are things that I need to kind of like double back and do at some point in time. Like for example, this is that development deal that David mentioned. I need to go back and do it. Some of these are simple things. Like this is a video that I've watched before about, being a good mentor. Well, I need to play that at some point and just kind of keep that content fresh in my mind. I need to read some articles, whatever. I've got different tasks that are related to some of these emails. Shame on me for getting behind on my track. Questions you got though on specifically, any other efficiency tips or anything else you want to talk about? Awesome. Hope this was helpful. Come next month. It's not the same content every month. I do rotate through 3 or 4 different versions of some sort of an organization, planning, efficiency type of presentation. Next month, we'll probably hit efficiency best practices. I think it's important to be talking about the foundations first. Like I said, we talked about task lists last month. We're talking about calendar this month, which is also foundational. And then we'll talk about, how to kind of hypercharge those things and be more efficient with them next month. You guys have the number, you have the email address. If you need anything, please reach out. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.